Hello and welcome to Mulch, with me, your host Rebecca Anning-Brown. This is a weekly podcast for flower farmers who want to build a confident flower farming practice that reflects the lifestyle that you want now and in the future. Each week I'll share conversation and tips to nurture and grow you and your flower farm. I'll open conversations that flower farmers find difficult to talk about, provide approaches that will help you to make decisions, chuckle at the idiosyncrasies of our work, and always be real and honest about my own work as a flower farmer. My goal is to help you to grow a curious, confident and grounded flower farming practice that flourishes as a business that you love and are proud to shout about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you hear, please do leave a review and share the podcast with your flower farming friends. It really does help to grow a confident and successful flower farming community.
Hello and welcome back to Mulch. How are you? I am feeling efficient this morning. The children have gone back to school. I have had a cup of tea and a cup of coffee, and I think I've achieved the most admin this morning that I've achieved in the past couple of months. So if you feel like you've had a torrent of emails from me, I'm sorry. And thank you for your patience awaiting a response. Today, Ms. Gray, let's move on. Today's episode of Mulch is entitled Building a Sustainable Flower Farming Practice. Now, if you've read the title and thought, oh, brilliant, I need to sort this out and write a statement, you're going to be disappointed, because this isn't necessarily sustainability as every business and company in the world is currently talking about. I'm not talking about green stuff today. I am talking about you. So yesterday was Sunday, and I sent out my first ever funeral spray. I sent out a coffin spray. It was 3.5 feet long. It was beautiful, sustainable, freshly cut, gorgeous. I was really, really proud of my work, and it's not often that I say that, so I'm sharing that today because it's particularly important for me to say that out loud. Now, the reason that I'm sharing that is because it may well interest some of you to know that wedding flowers, I do love a good wedding, but I wasn't interested in flowers at my wedding. Anthony and I were married in 2010. My mum chose my wedding flowers. I had a bouquet that was roses and lisianthus in white and purple. It fitted perfectly with my theme, our theme for our wedding, which was white, purple and gold. But in honesty, I did not care what the flowers were, and I, at that point, hadn't taken a particular interest in where the flowers came from either. So yeah, it would interest you further potentially to know that I chose my first house because it didn't have a garden. It had barely a patch, and it was mainly paved in front of my back-to-back house. It literally had no garden, and that was deliberate. I just wasn't interested in flowers and green space. I definitely didn't think that I had the time to look after it, and I had zero understanding of how good it would be for my well-being to take an interest in gardens. So those are two pieces of information about me that most people, certainly in this part of my world, do not know. So it wasn't until Anthony and I lost someone very close to our hearts a year later that I really paid attention to flowers, because I wanted some flowers that were fitting and appropriate. I wanted them to be delicate and beautiful and to represent the seasons. I wanted them to be scented, and I wanted that floral tribute to be small and handheld. If I had had a garden, perhaps I would have cut the flowers from there, but I didn't. And so when I visited florists, that's what I was hoping for. And to say they laughed in my faces at that time was... They didn't laugh, obviously. It was a significant funeral. But they essentially said, no, we can't do that. We don't have that sort of flowers. You need to get those from your garden if that's what you really want. But this is what most people have. So I had what most people had. I had some chrysanthemums, white ones, boring, horrid flowers, because at that time it was more important that we did the necessary funeral arrangements and that we looked after others as well. So that was the first time that I really paid attention to flowers. I was really interested in what was available. The second time was in 2019, which is the year that we started our business, a different type of celebration. So our friends, Becky and Steve, got married in 2019, and I was lucky enough to be invited to do their wedding flowers. I had never done wedding flowers. It was a huge undertaking for someone who's never arranged flowers before, but I loved it. It was phenomenal. And that was the time that I understood, or I learned about the challenges of buying good quality foliage, in particular in summer, but in general in the UK, because the majority of it is still imported and was definitely then. Anyway, when we started the business, I looked around for a course where I could learn funeral flowers, and that's how I came across the Tallulah Rose Flower School. And I had every intention of doing Rachel's Sympathy Flowers course in 2020, which obviously didn't happen because COVID occurred, blah, blah, blah. But I did book onto it at the next available opportunity, which was 2022. And I also did a funeral flowers course with Carol of Tuck Shop Blooms. And so between the two of them, I gained the skills to be able to create funeral sprays, flat posies, interesting basket arrangements, bowls and small vase arrangements to decorate the wake, simple carried flat back arrangements that could be placed on the coffin or could be taken away, funeral flowers that could be shared so that they were used in more than one way at the celebration. I learned a number of skills and left both of those short courses ready to be able to do something that I had planned to do. And yet, yesterday was the first time that, it's actually the second time, I guess, but the first time really was incredibly simple and has been within my gift for a number of years. So yesterday was definitely the first time that I properly used those skills. So 2 whole years later. You might ask the question, why? Why would you pay to learn skills and then not use them? I mean, it seems to make no sense. And my children said exactly that, Mummy, that makes no sense. Why have you spent all this money learning how to do something and you're only starting to use it today? So the truth is that behind the scenes, the back end of 2022, 2023 and 2024 have been challenging years for me personally. And I have had to learn about looking after myself. I've had to learn about creating space. I've had to learn how to say no. And most importantly, I have really had to work and learn the skill of creating healthy limits to my capacity. For those of you who know that my background is in the NHS as an ED consultant, there are no limits to your capacity when you're an ED consultant. And so when you run your own business, having come from that background, it's huge learning curve. So the other part that's important to be mindful of is that when you're running your own business, in this case we run flower farms, like you, not only does your business reflect you, it also needs you to provide that consistency of approach and attitude and your aims and goals, and to make sure that everything is always in keeping with those things. And so whilst I've continued over the past 2.5 years to practice or learn new skills, some big and some small, I've mainly done that because at some point I know that there'll be strings that I can add to my bow. And also, learning is a really good thing to do, no matter how small the skill you're trying to perfect or gain. Learning really keeps your interest in what you're doing. It's one of those things that helps you to get joy from your work. And so I have made an active decision, despite doing that learning, to make sure that I take every decision back to first principles, and that for us is our business plan. So for the past 3 years, we would sit down, or we have sat down, and we've actively checked whether any skills or ideas or things that we want to do fit with that business plan, and then whether I have the physical and mental capacity to be able to do it. And often the answer has been no. And in fact, weirdly, each time we've sat down, we've actually removed 1 or 2 things from our list of business practices. And that's made us more profitable. I can't tell you how hard it is for me to learn to say no, especially when I love what we do. But it is absolutely the case that doing less has meant that we've done more. And so whilst beautiful, sustainable funeral flowers are something that I'm really passionate about, and it's something that I really want to offer, so far it's not something that has been a big tick for yes as part of my regular practice. I think it's important to put that in contrast. So the way that I'm going to put that in contrast is by telling you a little bit about one of the growers that I work with one-to-one. So this particular grower had funeral flowers and that same course with tuck-shop blooms on her list of activities for this year, on her list of learning. So she did the course, she gained the skills, she had a couple of pictures, but not that many, but it's something that she really wanted to do. And when we sat down and had a mentoring session, one of the things that she said to me was, well, I need more pictures before I can really post my availability or willingness to do this. And I challenged that, because if you have the skills, you'll gain more work if you advertise and tell people what you're capable of. And when you do more work, you will have more work to take pictures of. The key thing is to make sure that your level of experience reflects your pricing. So make sure that it's fair, make sure that you're not undercutting anyone, make sure that it's clear that this is new to your practice, but you do have the skills, and advertise. And the difference here is that she had the capacity, and it was part of her business plan and part of her financial plan to include that in her work. Whereas I don't have the capacity, and therefore it's not part of our business plan. And so I haven't done it. And so there is that kind of contrast in terms of sustainability. For me, adding in funeral work to my weekly, daily practice this year, last year, even the year before, was too much. We'll ask the question again next year, and I think we'll probably say yes, we have the space to be able to do this now. But until the answer is yes, it's not something that I'm going to offer. Yet for my mentee, the answer was completely different. You don't need more evidence. If you have a few pictures, you understand your pricing, you've got a clear offering and of how you work, then, and you have the time and the mental space, then for you, you've decided that this is sustainable and it fits within your plan, crack on. Okay, many of you will have started listening to this episode thinking I would be talking about pest control or circular practice or composting, collaborative local working, any of those things. And all of those things are incredibly important to have as part of your business sustainability plan. But I hope you have realised that the purpose of sustainability in the context of this podcast is the sustainability of your business for you. Because absolutely it terrified me to reduce our offering. I mean, surely offering less means less income was my concern, and obviously we have bills to pay like everyone else. But actually it's meant the exact opposite, which is why it's so important for us to question each time what the right thing to do next is. Okay, so some homework for you. This week's homework is to sit with a pen and paper and a cup of tea or coffee and really think about your business this season and how sustainable it has been for you. Could you keep it up as you've worked this year consistently for the next 5, 10, 15 years? How has the work made you feel? Was this the intention when you set your business plan this year? Which parts of your business do you look forward to the most? Could doing more of this work form part of your next business plan? And then finally, have a good go at mind mapping or drawing what your business might look like or feel like if you were doing more of that work that brings you joy and that you have capacity for. Speaking of homework, which is something that's often a school will set at the end of a school day or at the weekends, depending on the age of your child, today is the first official day of the Flower Farming Business School. Please do follow us on Instagram at the Flower Farming Business School. We have a new email address, which is rebecca@theflowerfarmingbusinessschool.com, which is for emails related to this side of my world. And this week on Instagram, I will be talking mainly about who we are, what we do, how we can help you. So please do pop over and have a look. I would love it if you would help us to celebrate this new start. And you can do this by sharing the podcast in your stories and tagging at the Flower Farming Business School. Now, I would really appreciate this, and I hope that any of your flower farming friends who haven't spotted this would be grateful to you for sharing your knowledge. And I'm even up for a small competition on this one. Like, I'm not normally a competition type, but I really am, because the next edit of the Flower Farmers Planner is now sat on my desk. I've made a decision. We know which company we're going to use to print it, and I know how much it's going to cost and what comes with it, and that will all be available to pre-order from next Wednesday, the 11th of September. At some point, I'll have decided the time of the day when I have completed the sales page. I've written it out. It's in front of me in paper and pen. So it needs to be online and up and working before I can offer it to you. But you could get your hands on a copy for free by entering today's competition. So, to enter the competition, I would like you to share the podcast in your stories. I would like you to tag at the Flower Farming Business School in your stories. And just in case Mr. Instagram doesn't share this with me, because he doesn't always, I need you to send a copy of this share in your stories to the inbox, to the messages on our new Instagram account. So that's at the Flower Farming Business School. At the end of this school week, so on Friday the 6th of September, I will ask the junior section to pull a name out of a hat. So if you joined in, your name will go into the hat, they will pull it out, and you'll get a free copy of the Flower Farmers Planner. Go, go, go! Okay, I'll be back next week with another episode of Mulch. and I'll be talking about flower farming in practice. Have a great week, Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to Mulch. I hope that you found it useful. To find the show notes, head back to our website where you'll find links to all the things that I've been talking about in today's episode. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at Silver Grey Foliage. I would appreciate it so much if you were able to share this episode in your Instagram stories. And if you are able to leave a review, it really will help more people to get on and grow. I'll be back with you